brother. He's a friend from work.
Hi everyone, I'm Luke and you're watching The Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences. We'll get on with the show in just a minute, but first a quick word from my sponsor. As a fellow gamer, you'll understand this is unacceptable. The solution? Head down to my new sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk. KIENDA stocks many of the hot new releases as well as some old hidden gems. Free delivery on orders over £30, further discounts on bulk purchases, and even 5% of your spending refunded back to you as points to be used for further discounts down the line. If you use the referral link in the description below and sign up for a new account, you'll get 5% discount on your first order over £60. So let's make gaps in your collection a thing of the past. Get down to KIENDA and start saving today. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the video.
Get on with it.
Well, it's been a while since I've got a game out and played it this many times in quick succession before getting it ready for a review. Yes, this is Marvel D.A.G.G.E.R from Fantasy Flight Games, thanks to Asmodee for sending me a review copy. But man, you cut it fine, didn't you? I mean, this was sent to us literally about Thursday, Friday last week. So it's just come out on UK release today. KIENDA already have it on their website. And so I've had to play this solidly for the last few days, both solo and multiplayer, just to get it ready for a review. Because the fact that it has been released now means you people need to know if it's any good or not, and no one's covered it properly yet, you know, from a review perspective. So I figured this was something I needed to dig into. Now, this is being touted as Eldritch Marvel, effectively. Eldritch Horror was a game that Fantasy Flight Games put out, which is currently sitting in a big wooden crate up there, and it's so bloated beyond belief with all its expansions that I just can't be bothered to get the game out and play it again, because there's just too much stuff to sift through, even once you get past all the rules. This is supposedly the similar game, but with some differences in essentially a Marvel theme. Could this be the answer to my prayers? The fact that I've now got something that's maybe a little bit easier to get to the table? Or does it have a few little unique quirks of its own to set it apart from the Eldritch Horror series? Well, we'll have to find out. Marvel D.A.G.G.E.R is a cooperative game for 1 to 5 players. During the game, each player assumes the role of a Marvel hero standing against the forces of a powerful and villainous nemesis. To win the game, the heroes must complete missions, defeat enemies, and challenge the nemesis in a final showdown that will ultimately determine the fate of the world. Play as iconic heroes like Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Black Widow, and race across the globe to complete missions, battle enemies, and square off for the final showdown. Choose the best aspect for your hero and pull off awesome combos and wait for the perfect moment to unleash your ultimate ability. Some of this combo building derives from empowered and primed tokens. These tokens can be spent on characters and enemies in order to trigger off very powerful abilities that heroes possess. In addition, triggering combo abilities on your character sheet comes with an extra benefit: advancing the team up track, which is a resource shared by all heroes that is used to pay for team up abilities, which are the strongest powers in each hero's arsenal. Each villain has its own unique setup and missions that you must overcome in order to reach the final showdown. Will you be the one to save the world, or will you end up like the end of Infinity? So as I said before, this has been touted as essentially the Marvel version of Eldritch Horror, and that is the biggest comparison to do here. Now, there's definitely some similarities with this. You are going across a world board, so it's spanning the world, and you are going off to complete missions before you face off against the big bad. That's pretty much the same as in Eldritch Horror, frankly, except that in Eldritch Horror you have encounters, which are story-based events that take place, whereas here, all you have is a little event deck, which basically just gives you some basic blurb and then tells you what to spawn and what abilities to trigger. So this one doesn't have that story element. You kind of have to insert that yourself. But you also have unique characters with special abilities, much like in Eldritch Horror. You have enemies to defeat, like in Eldritch Horror. There's definitely some parallels that have been drawn here. But there are a couple of differences here and there, mainly with regards to the aspects, which is airlifted straight out of Marvel Champions. So Marvel Champions had different aspects which resembled like different cards that you're allowed to build your deck with. Well, here, this customizes your hero slightly, gives them a special ability, and augments 2 of the basic actions with boosted abilities that is unique to the hero, allowing for a great deal of variety in the starting setup. The team up track is also pretty unique to this game in that you level it up as a group and use it to spend on abilities. That doesn't exist in Eldritch Horror or Marvel Champions for that matter. So let's talk about this game's party piece. For the most part, the variety in this game is off the charts. It's a bit lackluster when we get to the cards, more on that a bit later, but in terms of your characters and your starting setup, there's plenty in here to customize with. There's only 4 villains. I would have liked maybe a couple more, maybe 6 villains, but Loki, Ultron, Thanos, and Red Skull is sitting around somewhere. I think he's over there. You know, 4 villains with unique setups is not bad. But here's where it's really good. You have 20 hero choices. 20. Yes, 20. There's only 10 sheets because they are double-sided. They're basically their alternate personas. So you got Spider-Man, Peter Parker, but you've also got Miles Morales. You got Daredevil paired with Elektra. You got Hulk paired with She-Hulk. I feel sorry for Hulk in that respect. But it means that you can't have 2 of the same effective multiversal character on the table at the same time. So I can't have both Spider-Mans in play at the same time, but you still have 10 different cards that are double-sided, so that's 20 heroes. And it's not like the stats are the same, they're fundamentally different. I mean, if I take Captain America Steve Rogers, his stat line, his abilities and what he has is fundamentally different from Captain America Sam Wilson on the other side. So these aren't just cheap, oh, I'll just tweak a little bit here and there. No, they are fundamentally unique and asymmetrical. That is a lot. And then you get on to the aspects. You've got 6 of them. Justice, aggression, vigilance, determination, aggression, and there's one other that seems to have gone missing. But, oh yeah, protection and leadership down here. But this allows for even more customization, and you can use any hero with any aspect. Yes, okay, taking someone like War Machine is probably best paired with aggression. They're going to have their ones that are slightly more suited to them. But if I want to make War Machine better at protection, I can. Or leadership. Or justice. Maybe Spider-Man's good at vigilance. Maybe Doctor Strange is good at determination. Maybe Black Widow is just hyper-aggressive all of a sudden. You know, you can do what you like.
Just for once in your life, don't smash.
Big monster!
The game also promotes a very strong co-op feeling in this game. One thing that I will compare to Eldritch Horror is that in Eldritch Horror, sometimes you felt like you were just a character doing your own thing on another side of the board. Yes, you worked together every now and again, but it was very difficult to get from one end of the board to the other to do a lot of team-up stuff. So you were kind of fending for yourself at times. Here though, there's none of that. You could be on other ends of the board, but you can easily get to each other usually, and it's good to be near each other because you've got a lot of abilities that can combo off each other. I had a fantastic combination, I believe, with Spider-Man and War Machine, wherever he's gone. But basically, the 2 of them together, one of them, Spider-Man primes anything that comes near them, spawns near them, but sticky web. So it's like, boom, you know, you're set up for combos. War Machine basically then comes along with his heat-seeking missiles and goes, right, well, I damage everything within 2 spaces of me. That's primed already. So keep the 2 of them together. Spider-Man sticks them to a wall, then War Machine shoots them with heat-seeking missiles. That seems a little vindictive, but it works. It's such a super strong combo, and you can create a lot of these because of the variety. But you can do that with other players. You can set up a good system of combos and teamwork, and like, you know, I need to get over here, but you need to help me boost that way, or, you know, I need some healing. Well, if I come around and boost my ability, I can give you some healing. You know what? I've got the leadership aspect. If I boost this particular defy action, then after I do it, you get to do it as well. There's a lot of things like that, and then you get to the team-up track. These hyper-powerful abilities, like for example, Hulk has Hulk Smash, you know, a superly good, strong ability to do multiple damage or multiple recovery within the space of like a turn for free. But in order to get that, you have to level up this track, but it relies on you as a group using your combo abilities and doing the missions and stuff. So there is a feeling that it's not just one person doing everything, because one person can't. The game is pretty challenging. Not too difficult, but also not easy. And particularly against certain heroes. Thanos much? Yeah, he will wipe the floor of you if you're not careful. But even some of the earlier ones like Loki and Red Skull can still give you a hard time if you're not careful. And you've got to keep a lot of things under control with the enemies and stop them overrunning bases and the threat counter that means you might pass or fail major missions. And so you've got to work together. There is no Lone Ranger in this game, and that's a good thing. It improves on Eldritch Horror in that respect, and it's about time that a co-op really did promote a sense of teamwork, because you are Marvel's heroes, your last line of defense in the world. You should be teaming up and doing cool stuff.
Are you even pulling? Are you on my team? Just represent, pull. All right, let's go.
The game's also very good at giving you a lot of options on your turn. Yes, your aspect only gives you 4 abilities that you can do twice each. But there's more to it than that. Your hero can have anywhere from 1 to 3 abilities on itself, that you can trigger in a similar fashion. But then there's also the bases themselves. You can trigger these actions, and some of the missions and some of the nemesis, in fact, you know, when they flip over or when they come out into play, might give you other things that you can do from an action perspective. So there's a decent amount of choice in what you do. You don't have to just make your whole round just go, I'll just move, and then I'm done. No, you can do a lot of cool little combos or have a bit of variety in what you do, and the actions are very different among all the characters, and thematically they work very well. Iron Man has got his jet thruster, so he can go at Mach 10 and fly around the world really quickly. I've already mentioned Spider-Man with his sticky web and priming enemies who come anywhere near him. War Machine just obliterates everything in sight. Elektra does mind games. You know, Captain America is all about the leadership side of things and team-ups. So thematically the game does work quite well from these characters, and at no point am I sitting on my turn thinking I've had a wasted round. Now, despite these good things, there are definitely some signs of some of the Fantasy Flight tropes in terms of its development here. Firstly, the rulebook. The rulebook is not terrible. The rules aren't too difficult to comprehend, but they don't make it easy for you. The rulebook is written fine. Like, I can understand what these things mean, and there's plenty of pictorial representation for examples, but I swear the layout of this, in terms of what order things should be in and where all the important bits are and that, I swear they wrote the rules, and this was written by a competent person, and then they gave it to a 3-year-old that was obsessed with Japanese manga. It's back to front, inside out, and all over the shop. You've got your setup to begin with, which takes about 4 odd pages, and then some fundamental concepts before it gets to playing the game, but then it sort of skips ahead at the end going additional rules, and the additional rules are all really useful things, and then on the last page before the back cover, you actually have things like damaging enemies. That's something that should be a little bit earlier in the book, thank you. It's rather important stuff. It's just kind of a bit of a mission to reference anything, and therefore, even though the rules aren't too complicated, you will miss some key aspects in your first couple of plays. On top of that, there's also quite a lot of FAQ moments that have popped up. I had 3 in one game. 3 in one game where we read some cards, read some missions, particularly with the Red Skull character and the protection aspect, where we're like, hang on, does this mean A or B? Because if it means A, then it's slightly broken, but then if it means B, that doesn't thematically work either. And there were just some bits like that. It's not helped by the fact there is a lack of any decent reference aids. I mean, you literally have this. This is the card you get given as a reference aid. It's got iconography on the back, which is mostly useless because it's mostly explained on the cards anyway what the icons do, so you pretty much won't be looking at this. And then the other side is just the round structure and the dagger actions, which is the location of the bases and that, and it literally just says about 3 words for each. It doesn't explain how any of them work, it just gives you the structure of the round, which isn't that difficult to remember. The key stuff I want to remember, like how do enemies move, you know, what's the order they activate and things like that, that's kind of stuff or how does the threat go up? Okay, what advances the threat? The nemesis, the enemies, and the overrun bases. I wish that was on a reference card because that would be useful information. So maybe it's on the back of the rulebook. No, the back of the rulebook literally has 2-player game, solo game, and variable difficulty variants, of which 2-player game and solo game is the exact same game, you just play with 2 heroes, and then half the page wasted on credits and playtesters. You couldn't even be bothered to make the back of your rulebook a decent reference aid. I wait for the time when somebody on BGG is going to make a good reference aid. Esoteric Order of Gamers, get on this. We need a good 1-page reference sheet for key rules and key aspects, because I think that will just do wonders for making this game a little bit smoother. But it's not that the game is impossible to learn, it's not. It won't take you more than a game, maybe 2, to get used to it all. But it could have been so much smoother if they just spent like another 5 minutes just looking at the layout of this rulebook and maybe just somebody tweaking that maybe they were just missing a couple of key things.
It's stupid! It's stupid!
The setup for this game is also a bit of a bear. I mean, as you can see, I have got a lot of baggies, right? The game doesn't come with these baggies, the game comes with this insert. And the insert is not terrible. I mean, it'll hold all the cards fine, it'll hold the dice, the bases, and a bunch of the other tokens if you bag them up. But I have chucked the insert, because if you use the insert, the setup for this is an absolute chore. As I said, the setup in the rulebook is, I kid you not, there's your components, There's the setup. Right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages are devoted to the setup alone. And this involves you having to get a major nemesis, right, get the nemesis sheet out, and his unique elite enemies, and his unique mission cards, and find one of 6 first strike missions, right, whichever one you pick, find the associated enemies associated with that first strike mission, right, everybody pick your hero, and pick a side, pick an aspect, grab your unique cards and your unique mission, choose one of your 2 supports to be face up before the time, get the counters all over the place, decide where you want to place your starting guys, decide where the Iliad has to go, you know, this particular base.
3 days later.
There's a lot in this game that needs to be set up, and if you try it from the insert, it's going to drive you nuts. I have purposely bagged everything in this fashion to make it a lot simpler. So every single hero has its unique bag, every villain its unique bag, every enemy type from the normal enemies its own unique bag, and then 1 bag for each of the different types of tokens, followed by 1 bag to hold things like bases and stuff. That may sound like a lot of bags, and it is. There is a lot on this table right now that is out of shot. But if you don't do this, you're going to hate setting this game up.
40 seconds, but I want to know.
Now, from an artwork and component front, oh dear. There's nothing in this game that I would consider to be bad in terms of components, but there's also nothing in here that's particularly good either. I mean, the most cool thing is possibly the artwork on the character cards and these 3D printed bases, and that's about it. The cards are pretty flimsy cardstock, you know, they're very soft. You might want to sleeve these, I recommend. The cardstock on these is fine, but it's still effectively bendy paper. There's no miniatures, it's cardboard standees, which is fine. They've got artwork on them, and I'm starting to get a little bit zoned out by miniatures being everywhere these days. But you have a bunch of cardboard tokens, you've got the board that looks basically like a Pandemic clone, and that's kind of it from the component front. I mean, most of it is just basically the little individual bits that go with each particular hero in that. So, okay, maybe the game's quite cheap. No, it's not. This game retails, and I kid you not, RRP is around £90. KIENDA has it on their storefront now for 72. Are you frigging kidding me? Remember the rant I went on with Skyrim about how much that cost? This is not quite as bad as Skyrim is. Skyrim was worse, believe me, but this is not exactly justifying that price point. And you know why? Because of this Marvel bit on the top. You know that Disney has basically come along and said, right, we are making a game using our license. Fantastic. Give us 75% of the profit and then you can make it. Because there is no way that this game should be a £75 effective game. It probably should be around the 40, 45 tops. I would have been totally content. Maybe it was a £50 game. £50 tops could justify this component quality artwork and the Marvel license and that, but 75 plus, and that's when you get it from a cheap site. You know, you could be paying more than that in some countries, or like if your local game store is going to have this for £90 in order to try and make any profit margin whatsoever. That's kind of ridiculous, really. I mean, even Eldritch Horror didn't cost that much when it first came out. I know that was many years ago and inflation and everything, but still, it's a little bit obscene. And you know, you've got to be going into this knowing you're going to get this game out and play it and enjoy it. Don't buy this thinking you're getting good component quality for your money. You're not. You are getting a game that hopefully you will enjoy and play a lot, but man, that price tag is a hard pill to swallow.
Shut up and take my money!
Player scaling on the whole is not too bad either. If you play this solo or 2-player, you basically control 2 heroes. There's no difference between solo and 2-player. But solo is fun. I've played this more often solo than I have multiplayer, and you can have 2 heroes, and you can have a decent game and stand a good chance of winning. And to be honest, there's nothing stopping you from just controlling 3 or 4 heroes, because frankly, it doesn't take much to control a hero. I mean, you have your aspect tokens, and you decide what actions you're doing from the motley selection you have, but if you want to play this 3-player or 4-player with 4 heroes in front of you, then why not? I do it with Sentinels in the multiverse. But when you play 3, 4, or 5 players, basically the game scales up slightly in terms of how many enemies spawn and how much stuff you need to do on missions. So the difficulty scales up quite well. But the time length for this game is a bit of an issue because it says 3 to 4 hours on the box, and it is not wrong. I mean, solo, you should not take 3 hours. Maybe your first game when you're trying to learn all the rules at once, but even then, solo, you should be able to get this done in, say, a 90-minute, 2-hour time frame, but oh when you play this with 3 or 4 players, when you've got new players here, this game's going to take you a while to get done. This is not a short game, and I don't know what it is about Fantasy Flight and their ineptability at being able to make anything short. They just can't do it. Remember the Unfathomable, the replacement for Battlestar Galactica? They had every opportunity to make that a shorter version, and they did not. What is it with you, Fantasy Flight, and being unable to make short games? Do you just not care? And I'm saying it has to be 30 minutes, but for crying out loud, there's a bit of a gap between a 30-minute filler and a 4-hour extravaganza. So, you know, this game does go on a while. Am I involved during the whole game, though? Yes. Do I enjoy my gameplay of it, though? Yes. But still, I do prefer to bring this out solo rather than multiplayer, mainly for that game length reason. And certainly, you can bet I'm not playing this with 5 players again. That 5-player game was hell. That was not something I want to repeat. It takes way too long to have everything triggered, to have everything spawn, and to have 5 of you discussing what you're going to do in the game. Yes, the game will feel epic, but it ain't worth it. Cap this at 4 players, ideally cap it at 3 players, frankly. This makes for a very good 3-player experience. You get 3 actions each person, so 9 actions with a 3-player game, 12 and then 15 as you go on. If you play 2-player or solo, each hero, if you're controlling only 2 heroes, will get 4 actions each. So solo, I get 8 actions, 3 players, I get 9 actions. Not a huge amount of difference between the 2, frankly, so you can still get enough done and feel that the game isn't, you know, unnecessarily punishing. So rating this one is quite tricky. I gotta give it some tough love. I do really enjoy the gameplay here. I love the variety in all these characters and the setups. That's brilliant. I like the gameplay and the teamwork aspect that gets players cooperating or makes for a fun solo game of combo building. All that is excellent. You know, that alone would put it into kind of 8-9 territory for me, maybe propped up by the fact that I do like Marvel more than Cthulhu. But I can't escape and overlook some of the problems that this game has from a development standpoint. Subpar artwork and components for that kind of money is kind of unacceptable at this day and age. I don't care how much a license is worth. You know, maybe don't use Marvel. You know, do what Greater Than Games did with Sentinels. Invent your own heroes. The gameplay would have still been the same, but you didn't need to make it Marvel. Yes, it's cool from a theme perspective, but if it saves you 50 quid on the price tag, then why not? The rulebook layout and the lack of decent reference aids is kind of unforgivable. I mean, at least the rules are clear enough to understand, but you could have made this a much smoother game if you just took 5 extra minutes to plunk this in front of a rulebook editor. It would have made, you know, a much more useful part of the game than just a hero profile guide that gives you a little bit of lore on each character with no actual gameplay usage whatsoever. Add to that the fact that they could have made this shorter and they didn't. 3 to 4 hours is a long time to play this game for the fact that I probably don't want to play this with 4 or 5 players. 3 players is probably my cap. There's just these bits I can't really forgive. But overall, I'm giving this a 7 out of 10. It's a good game and I do recommend it with a seal of endorsement. But this could have been a seal of distinction level. I could have seen myself giving this a 9 out of 10 if those problems weren't there. But for that price, for these little issues that you've got that do add up to a big thing, the gameplay and the Marvel theme is doing a big job in propping this up. It's doing a great job of doing that. But that means that I gotta give it tough love and give it a 7, not a 9, because those sort of things I can't just overlook. I do recommend it. Maybe try before you buy because of that high price point, or buy it as a group. You know, if you've got a group of regular players that are going to play this often, buy it between you. That will offset some of the money. But remember, I got this as a review copy. I got it for free. I'm having to think about this as to whether I would have spent £75 plus of my own money on this and been happy with the stuff I'm seeing in front of me here. From a gameplay perspective, yes. From a development perspective, not so much. So take it for what it's worth and make your own decision. I hope it's been useful.
I'm sorry.
So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb up the video here on YouTube, but also thumb it up on Board Game Geek when I put the video live on the Marvel D.A.G.G.E.R review page. Let's get the algorithm going. Of course, don't forget to leave your comments down below. Does this game sound like something you're interested in? Do you have more questions about the game that I haven't portrayed in my review? By all means, ask them. I'll do my best to answer them down in the comments. But also let me know your thoughts on whether you would compare this to Eldritch Horror. You know, do you prefer one over the other? Is there one that's more appealing to you? Like I say, let me know your your thoughts, be civil, and of course, let's get into some fun little discussions. Until next time, though, you can check out more content on the show, including the next episode in the Keep or Coal series that I've been doing, but also all the reviews I've been doing since the UK Games Expo. There's loads, Rich and the Good, Mindbug, and many, many more. There is just so much content I'm pushing out at the moment, and I hope you've all been enjoying it. So take care, and remember, regardless of who your favourite Marvel hero is, Spider-Man, and yes, I'm not lost on the irony that somebody with arachnophobia has Spider-Man as their favourite Marvel villain. It's weird, but to say the least. But either way, it's still only a game. Bye for now, everyone.